Hello, and welcome to The Weird is Sacred. I am Francheska, and I create small batch herbal self-care through my business, Soaps, Candles, and Dots. Everything I create, whether it's a candle, a soap, a podcast episode, or a quiet moment of reflection, started as something I needed myself. And then I realized I wasn't the only one having blank spaces without the right words or understanding, so I began sharing them. The Weird is Sacred is one of those spaces. It's where we have the conversations we don't always have out loud, the ones that ask us to slow down, to pay attention, to question what we've been carrying, and remember that awareness often begins in the moments that feels a little bit strange, unexpected, or difficult to explain. Well, keeping our own magic. So let's dive into today's conversation. Every once in a while, a movie comes along that isn't really about the story. It's about what it stirs in you. And I recently watched Voicemails to Isabel. And instead of wanting to talk about the plot, I want to talk about what it reminds me of. So don't you worry if you haven't seen it, because I'm not gonna spoil absolutely anything. I just want to share the conversation it started inside of me. It was more like a roller coaster, but while I was watching, it felt like a lot of things in my own life were happening at once. One of the things I love most about the main character was her energy. She was bold. She wasn't afraid to say what she was thinking or do what she believed needed to be done. She was very straightforward and very honest, and there was something really refreshing about watching someone move through life with that kind of honesty. But as I kept watching, I noticed something else. Even though she was fearless, so much of what she did was for someone else. And that made me stop and ask myself a question. And is that how much of my life has been shaped by what other people needed from me? Not because they forced me, of course. Not because they were bad people. Simply because that's what I knew how to do. As business owner, as friend, as a family member, as a partner, as a mom. Sometimes we become so good at showing up for everyone else that we forget to ask ourselves, what do I really want? Then life changes, sometimes gently, some other times all at once, and suddenly we're standing in a place where we can keep living the same way. Not because we don't love people around us anymore, but because life is asking a different question. If this choice truly belongs to me, what would I choose? And that question has been sitting with me for a while. I've noticed that I've been changing the way I create in general. I've been using different creative outlets to express myself, but also changing the way I work and the way I move through my business. For a long time, I caught myself thinking about what I should post, what will perform well, what people expect from me, or what I was supposed to be doing. Now I'm trying something different. I'm creating because I really want to. And it's not that I didn't want before, right? But at some point, it started feeling more like a chore, like I should be doing this or that. Now I'm sharing because I genuinely have something I want to say, or I'm simply excited about sharing something. I want to talk to people. I want to create a space where we can pause for a second, where we can question things, where we can become a little bit more aware of the stories we are living in. I'm moving because the next step feels aligned. Not because someone else told me that what success supposed to look like, which, if you ask me, is completely stupid, because success looks different for everyone. For some people, it's money. For others, it's freedom. For someone else, it might be having the flexibility to spend more time with their family, or finally feeling at peace with themselves. We all get to define that for ourselves. That doesn't mean that I sit around waiting for life to happen magically, right? Because I don't believe that's how it works. People often talk about manifestation as it's all you have to do is think positive and feel a little, and somehow everything is gonna fall into place. I don't see it that way. Action is the part that holds everything together, if you ask me, in my experience. Because you still have to move, you still have to make decisions, you will still have to knock on doors or try something new, change your mind, accept the help when someone offers, and keep going even when you don't know where you are headed. The movie reminded me that possibilities don't appear just because we wish for them. They appear because we are willing to keep moving. Another thing that stayed with me was this idea that your people will find you. And I don't mean that in a passive way, right? It's not like you're gonna be hanging out in your house by yourself, waiting for the universe to drop people at your front door, right? I mean that when you stop trying so hard to become who you think you are supposed to be, you become easier to recognize. You start being authentic, and that's your own magic. The people who resonate with you can finally see who you are, not who you think they want you to be, just you. And I don't think that's just in business, right? I think it applies to every situation and relationship in life. The more honest we become about who we are and what we want, the easier it becomes to build real connections. That's why stories matters. Sometimes they don't teach you something new. Sometimes they just help us recognize what's already there and we just haven't been listening. And I think that's why this movie stayed with me. Not because it gave me answers, but because it reminded me that life is still full of possibilities, that we are allowed to outgrow old versions of ourselves, that we are allowed to outgrow spaces and relationships and old ways of thinking, and that asking what I want is not selfish. Choosing from that place doesn't mean we stop loving the people around us. It simply means that we are finally putting ourselves into the conversation too. So today, instead of asking yourself, what should I do next? Ask yourself, if no one expected anything from me today, what would I choose? Thank you so much for spending time with me. Until the next one, keep noticing, keep questioning, and keep making space to come back to yourself. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.